Awesome. Thank you so much, Alice, for setting up all the logistics for today's session. I will now bring us over to just a few of the slides that we've prepared for a brief introduction on today's session, as well as our panelists. So, hello everybody, welcome to today's session, Mature Your Energy Program for the Decisive Decade. My name is Jasmine. I'm part of the federal team at ICF that supports the EPA Energy Star Service and Product Provider Partnership and Commercial Buildings Programs, and I'll also be moderating today's presentation. For today's session, we'd like to host a candid conversation with leading organizations that were able to mature their energy management programs over the years. And through our conversations, we'll hear about how they were able to get their programs off the ground, how they've evolved those programs over time, as well as where they plan to take their programs into the future. So through our discussion today, we'll also be identifying some common challenges and barriers that these organizations have faced to get their programs off the ground, as well as some actionable steps that all organizations can take to mature their personal programs. So on the line with me today, we have Matt Pittenger, Bob Valere, and Brad Wheeler. So we'll get started with a quick round of introductions and pull up their bios. So Matt Pittenger is the Manager of Energy Advising at NG Impact, where he leads a team in developing, implementing, and executing energy and water reduction programs for NG clients. Matt has over 12 years of experience in the energy and sustainability industry, and he also has a lot of experience under his belt as an energy auditor with over 200 site visits across several industries, and as well has been involved in certifying hundreds of buildings across the country for the Energy Star certification. Also joining me on the line today is Bob Valere, who is the Director of Energy and Environmental Management at Staples, with over 30 years of experience in energy strategy and management. Bob is responsible for the Staples Global Energy Program on behalf of 1,600 retail stores and 4 large distribution centers. He also leads the Energy Management Group, which is part of the Staples Sustainability Program. Staples has earned Energy Star Partner of the Year for 12 years and the Sustained Excellence Award for 8 consecutive years. And lastly, Brad Wheeler is the Senior Manager of Energy and Planned Maintenance at Best Buy. Brad has been with Best Buy for 25 years, working in store fixture maintenance as a territory facilities manager and managing a larger team of energy and planned maintenance managers. Prior to Best Buy, Brad spent several years managing repair and maintenance at Musicland stores and also was a property manager at Norwest Banks. Best Buy has earned Energy Star Partner of the Year for 8 years and the Sustained Excellence Award for 6 years. So with that, as you can tell, we have a very illustrious panel today. So let's kick this conversation off by starting at the beginning, at least as far back as our panel has been involved in their organization's energy management programs. And then also really quick, I think we do have a polling question open on the side that is going to gauge how our attendees are represented in each organization type and sector. So if folks want to take a minute to, while we're going through some of these questions, to fill out this polling survey, we'll also get a good sense of who's on the line, joining our panel and listening in, and then be able to speak to some of your relevant questions regarding maturing your specific energy management program. All right, so with that, let's kick this conversation off with a first question directed towards Bob. So Bob, Staples has participated in Energy Star super early on, since 1999, and has set a baseline performance year of 2010 for several ambitious and long-term energy and sustainability targets. So what did your management program look like when you first got started with Staples? And could you also tell us about why Staples decided to participate in Energy Star so early on?
Thanks, Jasmine. I think what was really interesting is when we signed the letter of memorandum of understanding. I can remember presenting that back early on to my senior management, and back then it was a 6-page document. Since then it's a 1-page to really get the buy-in of our senior management. And I think that's a key because when Staples first started, we said we're going to partner with EPA and Energy Star, and actually back then it was called Green Lights. And for us to say, you know, we have the Staples brand, why would we want to partner? And I think when we brought the marketing team in to sit down with our senior leadership to show them that people recognized back then as Green Lights or the Energy Star brand, to be able to say, wow, look at the value that this brings to the retail sector. And I think what's interesting was once they sat down and talked about the brand, and we sell over 3,200 products that have the Energy Star logo, because everyone is familiar with that brand, and how does Staples partner with that brand and to be able to educate our consumer, our employees, and the customer on why we're selling that product. So that helped launch and get senior management buy-in, because I think that is the key. Once you have the management buy-in program, it helped open doors. The other thing that I felt was key within our organization, I sat at the time in the operations group where facilities, engineering, construction, and energy all sit under the same umbrella. So it's not like they build it, maintenance manages it, and then you make the adjustments. So when we started building our prototype to make sure that everyone had a seat at the table to build the most energy efficient box, we then established some national accounts who were buying high efficiency HVAC, high efficiency lighting, putting in energy management controls so that we built an energy efficient box right out of the gate, because when we're building 30, 40, 50, 100 stores a year, it made a difference. That way we were able to track and manage our performance. And they actually partnered with people like NG, it was Advantage IQ back there in the day, to be able to benchmark, because as an energy manager, our job is to really drive efficiency and look at the top 10, the bottom 10. How do we do that? And I think what was interesting was when we used the Energy Star benchmark to achieve a score of 75 and better, that put us in the top 25% in the industry. And I don't think P really does it justice to be able to say, hey, we're in that top 25%. When we started doing our benchmarking and using with Portfolio Manager to be able to establish that, to say, how do I take a building that has a score of a 73 to get them to a 75, or even worse, something that was a 40 to get it to another level. So we started building that criteria, educating our associates what we can do to make investments to educate the associates, and then to achieve that Energy Star. Back then it was a bronze plaque that we would put up on the front of every building. We'd actually put a banner and send it to the store or send it to the DC. We'd have a pizza party to let them know they are the best of the best in that business sector. So when you look at, we have retail stores, our corporate office, daycare, sales office, things of that nature, it really opened the doors. So those are some of the challenges that we learned early on.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. It's certainly a recognizable challenge to get buy-in from all levels, from upper management and just everybody working on the ground. So thank you so much for that. All right, so now we want to also turn over the question to Brad from Best Buy. So Best Buy has been building out its sustainability program and working towards reducing emissions all the way back since 2009. So Brad, could you also clue us in as to what your energy management program looked like in the very beginning?
Yeah, I think kind of early along, Best Buy was opening kind of 50 to 100 stores a year. We were really, really keenly focused on kind of the NSO or new store opening process. So, I think our energy management team really was more focused on making sure that we had accounts set up with utilities, that we had rate structures in place, that we were commissioning store building controls, doing a lot of the things around an individual store, making sure that that geo date didn't get missed, that You know, we didn't spend a lot of time looking at the efficiency of the store. The energy management team was really kind of a handoff from our design and architecture group. So I think Bob alluded to the idea that his construction team and his operations side and his facility side are very integrated. Kind of early along, we were really not. The NSO process really sort of pulled the wagon along, and our energy management group was sort of part of the wagon, right? So a lot of our reliance early along on making our stores efficient really was passed off to our design and architecture group, and then also some outside vendor partners. Those folks had, you know, their really firm marching order was all about opening the store on time, making sure that that store was built, you know, like plans, and those plans were probably 9 to 12 months old, maybe sometimes even older. So we had, I think, a lot of challenges on sort of trying to get ahead of that NSO cycle, right, and really have the energy management group be able to, I think, influence and start to lead some of those things. So that was some of our early year challenges that we had here at Best Buy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brad. So now that we do have some background on the sustainability origin stories of these two large retailers, I think it would also be helpful to turn it over to ENGIE, who is a service and product provider organization represented by Matt. So Matt, you've partnered with several North American organizations through your work as an ENGIE impact expert, and helps a lot of them establish and expand their current energy efficiency initiatives. So how do the experiences that we've just heard about from Staples and Best Buy compare to some of the other types of organizations that you've worked with? And could you also tell us a little bit more about what motivates these organizations to start setting sustainability targets and ultimately make the commitment to meeting them?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Staples and Best Buy, I think there are some common experiences, but mostly it sounds like you started in two different spots. You know, no two sustainability programs are going to be the same, and you have to really know and understand your business and what drives your business and business culture in order to have a successful program. In terms of you know, what we're seeing today in the market, while cost is still a huge driver controlling utility spend, we're seeing a lot of pressure for greenhouse gas reduction, and corporate sustainability is driving a ton of conversation. And a lot of that is stemming from investor pressure, demanding that public plan for reduction be in place, but also interim goals be set so that you know, having a sustainability goal, establishing a roadmap and meeting those targets is becoming extremely important. A lot of companies today have a net zero target that is far off into the future that they're going to need to start planning for if they haven't already. Some of the more progressive companies have interim goals that they are planning to hit or have already hit, which becomes very important, especially when you're talking 20, 30, 40 years into the future. A couple other, you know, trends is we're seeing a lot of marketing and competitive advantage, you know, similar to what Bob mentioned on the Energy Star logo and the brand. Your customer bases are now demanding more sustainable practices from businesses, along with the labor market. So employees want to work for companies that have a clear mission and a clear path to energy reduction and carbon reduction. And then lastly, kind of circling it back to the cost aspect, it is mostly price uncertainty. So we're seeing a lot of rising utility rates, especially over the past 6 months or so, energy and water. And it's important to, at the end of the day, be able to control what you can control through your own energy reduction and operational improvement.
Thank you, Matt, so much for those insights. Right. So obviously, there are a whole bunch of challenges already in place for companies that are just looking to start off their energy management programs and meet some initial energy efficiency goals. But at this point, we would also love to hear about how Staples and Best Buy were able to kind of develop and grow these programs into where they are today. So I suppose turning it initially to Brad, and then Bob will follow up with you if you would like to also share some of your thoughts on this question. In broad strokes, what does your sustainability program look like today? And could you also tell us about some of the internal as well as the external drivers that have shaped your program from inception to now present day, specifically to how your company has been able to scale up commitments throughout the years?
Yeah, so I think at Best Buy, we were able to find and kind of identify and execute some quick payback capital projects, and I think it really started to align our finance team and our senior executive group to understanding that energy efficiency really can and it does drive significant returns back to our bottom line. So I think we committed to being able to go out and I think the basis of reducing our energy consumption really was that we're gonna give the company a big financial benefit, right? You give us some money, we're gonna go out and execute projects that make really good sense and enable us to operate our stores, I think, more financially efficiently as well as sort of energy efficiently. So we, I think one of kind of the early significant projects we did was just replacing some wall pack lighting on our stores. We did about 500 stores. We had simple payback, something around 24 months or less. We found some vendor partners that were really able to go out and execute. They could also kind of wrap in a lot of utility rebates, and so we had a project that we stand up in front of our finance group, right? And I think it really also got the attention of the executives that for us, energy management and energy efficiency really were good for our business from kind of a pocketbook standpoint as well as from kind of the efficiency standpoint. So that really, I think, kind of kicked off and enabled us to I think, have that kind of finance team buy-in for us, and that was really a significant change. And I think the ability to sort of break away from that, we're sort of account setter-uppers, right? To really that we're going to get ahead of this, and we're actually going to return significant savings to the company. The other thing that we did, we actually worked with finance and committed to reducing our budget. As they gave us capital, we would give them money back on the expense side. We'd commit to it ahead of time, and then we also were able to work with them and audit that and make sure that we were actually kind of giving back the money, and it was permanent savings and things like that. So for us, it was really important, I think, that, again, that we kind of got that. There's an economic and financial benefit to what we're going to do. And then we were able to prove that and really tell that story clearly. And that's enabled us to, I think, get bigger and bigger pieces of capital pie as we've asked for them. So today, our energy management team now is we're integrated right in the site operations or kind of our facilities team, right, as kind of Bob alluded. We've got 2 energy managers plus myself, so kind of a team of 3, and we report up to the director of site operations. We still have some responsibilities in setting up, new or relocating accounts and things like that, but the majority of our time really is focused on kind of executing those capital projects and designing and kind of upgrading our building controls to be able to do more things. And then also we work with procurement on better purchasing strategies to try and kind of reduce some of those really high rate increases that we've been seeing out in the marketplace.
Yeah, so one of the things that I know on discount. And I think as a newcomer that's starting to buy into Energy Star, don't underestimate the value of portfolio manager, being able to have good benchmarking on all of your facilities. Because once you start to build a mature program, you build a trust with the finance people. And I think one of the things we're able to engage on early on that helps us today is having a finance person assigned to the team. Because a lot of energy people have small teams, but what we realize is we built out our program. We have the Energy Star, our account manager. We have the folks from Lithonia and Acuity on our team. We have Novar. We have Lennox and Carrier. So we have all these energy experts on the products that we build with our store to help us lay out our plan for the next 2 to 3 to 5 years. So I think as you become mature and you build that credibility, because finance would come to you and said, hey, we built an Energy Store or an Energy Star right out of the gate, and we used Energy Star by design. We also looked at lead buildings and said, hey, let's look at the two opportunities. But felt from a cost perspective, a lot of our customers associates understood the Energy Star label and the program, so that was an easy sell, and embracing those partners helped us build a mature team. And I know that when the challenge is when you put LEDs and, you know, convert from T8 to LED and high efficiency, it's an energy efficient building to begin with. And now the challenge is the return on investment, because finance wants to see a 2 or 3 year payback. Now that we've established sustainability goals, and now our sustainability team is we have somebody from legal, HR, we have a team of 25 people that work with our suppliers, our manufacturers. We're scope free. We actually partner with energy to actually help us set our carbon goals. We made a commitment we'd reduce our carbon footprint by 50% by the year 2025. And I'm proud to say we're very close to hitting that goal this year. So the thing is, in order to build that rapport, build that reputation, partnering with the folks from Energy Star and your team to be able to establish that, we also now put a sustainability carbon reduction. So instead of putting a 2-year investment or a 3-year, because it's not like, let me remarket the front end and hopefully can generate 5% sales. I put a new lighting system or upgrade the HVAC, I'm going to deliver that return on investment to the bottom line within 2 years or 3 years. And having sustainability that reduce my carbon, put a value to that, helps me meet those paybacks. So I think those are things that you want to embrace as you build your program, to bring those people in to help lay that out. Once you start setting a team together, allows you to do audits and be able to look at the building, benchmark your sites, and to be able to drive that value.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for these thoughts, Brad and Bob. It sounds like in both of your experiences, providing pretty robust cost savings metrics, it just makes an easier business case for all of your energy management initiatives. And then, you know, this ultimately also contributes to having the dedicated sustainability staff to really level up all the expertise at your organization. So this certainly helps map out the drivers and the annual action items that you could take to continuously mature energy management programs at organizations kind of across the board. And it really makes the whole thing seem a lot less daunting. So thank you so much for sharing. Understanding the current market and why organizations might want to establish and commit to these programs is clearly key to building these business cases. But as well with any type of initiative, organizations will certainly face challenges and barriers along the way. So I wanted to pivot to speaking about these challenges that you have all faced. So again, these questions are for Staples and Best Buy, and then Matt will also turn it to you to speak about some barriers at other comparable organizations. But thinking about your companies in their current state, where they're both considered quite mature in the energy management space, I'd like to turn it back to Brad to ask if you're facing any barriers currently in maintaining the momentum necessary to reach your ambitious program targets?
So I think kind of some of the challenges we're facing today, probably like a lot of folks out there, we really are getting materials and labor and being able to actually execute things that we've been given capital to do. So our HVAC replacement program, building controls replacement and upgrades, interior lighting, those are all certainly more expensive than they were a year or two ago, and even more so, just being able to get those projects executed in a timely manner, right? So we used to have 5-week lead time on ordering new HVAC rooftop package units, and we're looking at a really long wait now, 4 or 5 months sometimes. And again, I think everybody is kind of facing that. Finding qualified labor to go out and install new energy management systems in our stores. Again, we have money in our hand, and it's become difficult to go out and be able to execute that. I think in a timely manner. But, as I talked about earlier, generally speaking, we've already, once we've received approved capital, we've kind of given some expense money back, with the expectation that we're going to be returning some of that improvement on the expense side. So it's sort of really costing us money in real time as we have delays on being able to implement some of that kind of work. So I think that's been difficult. And then I think that, again, kind of the skyrocketing utility prices that we see out there, natural gas prices are just crazy. We only have so much ability to sort of regulate or limit the impact of those increases that we see out in the world.
Awesome, thank you, Brad. And then turning it to Bob to answer essentially the same question. Considering Staples' relative maturity in their energy management program, have there been certain barriers that you've faced in recent years in just maintaining momentum and working towards these targets, perhaps in seeing relative, trends compared to your historical performance as an organization towards meeting more ambitious targets?
Yeah, so one of the things that we faced too is early on as we started embracing our sustainability goals, we started adding some renewables to our portfolio, solar, some fuel cells, and wind. And we bought these systems outright, and it was very expensive capital, but these were long-term investments. Now, as we start to move fast forward, when COVID actually took into place, and the challenge to step back a little bit, the same Brad faced, that we were building 100, 150 stores a year. The challenge is, as those mature, to get that kind of capital to make all those investments. So we've had to take a strategic approach to say, instead of replacing all the HVAC, do half now and half later down the road. We've had to cherry pick some things. Same with the lighting. When you're in Kansas City paying 6 cents a kilowatt versus California at 17, we've had to move things around, and that's where portfolio managers helps us to establish some of the benchmarking and look at sales too, to be able to say high volume store versus low volume store. So we had to rethink how we applied capital, how we made some changes, how some of the renewables came in. And then the other key thing is working with our utilities to make sure that they understand our business, because as we started adding renewables to our building, what they realized is that, hey, wait a minute, you're taking business away from us, you put solar or wind on your facility. We're now going to rethink how we apply capital or rebates to your facility. So think of, now I'm using solar, the amount of energy they're supplying us is probably a third. Our rebates and incentive got cut back because of that. And people don't realize to say, wait a minute, you've moved to this space, how do I apply that? So the rebates, so it started dropping capital costs. So Staples allowed us to do some third-party financing to get some volume in to help with that, but that's not a fit for everyone. And then we started doing what we do is the recertification with Energy Star to go back in and recertify our buildings. We started treasure hunts. It would actually bring a team of people in and do a deep dive and look at how the building operates, how we can do things more efficient and better to run the building, and engage all the employees. The other thing is we'd go out to the communities and show the things that we would do by going to schools and doing things with COVID. That kind of shut things down, allowed us not to go back into our facilities. So it scaled things back. And then the last thing is we started to change filters to a HEPA filter, different levels, started moving more air in the building, lowering temperatures because people felt claustrophobic. So we had some challenges facing us due to COVID to drive energy costs up, where we're trying to drive efficiency. So those are some of the challenges we face on this kind of year. We're still able to meet some of those sustainability goals. And I think one of the things I want to educate, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because people will come out and say, hey, I've added solar. And let me give you an example. You know, we have a 3 megawatt solar array at 1 million square feet of distribution. That's 62% of the energy in the summer, but that's only 18% in the winter. So when you start to put these sustainability goals and things out there, you really need to understand the business. That's why working with people like NG and Constellation, when you start buying electricity and looking at your portfolio, maybe you do a PPA, or you do some virtual, or you do some community things that can help offset that or apply. So there's other strategies that come into place. I look at how we first started out in 99, it changed around 2010 and 12, and now it's changed the industry again. So I think having a team, being flexible, using your partners to help develop your strategy across your portfolio allow you to be successful.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bob. And then for Matt, I'll frame this in a bit more of a comparative way for folks in our audience that might represent smaller organizations or those that don't come from the retail space. So when comparing organizations that are just starting off and those that have already had well-established energy management programs, what is the difference in the kind of barriers that these organizations typically will face? And then also, do you have any insights to share about what would keep the ball rolling for organizations with longer-term commitments and goals?
Yeah, sure. So for organizations just starting to out on your journey, really the biggest barrier that we see is a lack of centralized data, whether that be monthly utility bills or interval data, all the way to a lack of a building asset management system that can help you do preventative maintenance on your building systems. So those are some of the things that you really need to get in place first and foremost before even setting these goals into the future. Another common one, of course, is prioritizing capital for projects. Some ways around this. I heard Bob and Brad talk about the extreme importance of getting executive level buy-in for this to not only help with the capital aspect of things, but really just helps trickle down throughout the entire organization. And then for some more mature programs, that some of the barriers that we see, again, back to what Brad and Bob said, measurement and verification. So once you've done the initial implementation of that low-hanging fruit, how do we measure and verify that we're getting the savings that we were promised, and then how do we then turn that into a business case for future funding, especially if the projects might not be as financially attractive in the second, third, fourth round of retrofits. And then I think what everyone is facing, is changing business climate and changing priorities. Just most recently from COVID, it's causing obviously a lot of supply chain issues, increase in pricing, So I think that kind of goes across the board for both mature programs and programs that are just starting out, which really kind of ties into what does keep that ball rolling. Budgeting as best as you can. I realize pricing is extremely uncertain right now, but getting in that budgeting cycle as early as possible, keeping the conversation going, not only within your direct group of energy management or facilities management, but throughout the organization, all the way up to the C-suite. Sustainability has a role to play in all facets of the business, not just energy reduction, and that a lot of that can be helped, I'd say, by creating that strategic roadmap. So what do we plan on accomplishing in year 1, year 3, year 5, and then what are contingencies if something goes sideways during that time frame? How are we able to adapt to the changing business climate?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. To kind of follow up on some of those points as well, we talk about some of the low-hanging fruit, making sure that we're meeting we're tracking, assessing, verifying all of these metrics going into our energy efficiency initiatives. I think we have also some attendee representation on the line from some utilities that also want, greater clarification on how they can improve incentive programs, improve the design on these incentive programs with respect to utility rebate. So, how can our organizations on the line make folks aware of the rebate and incentive programs available to them, as well as just kind of presenting it as a partnership with utilities? Do you have any color on that as well, Matt?
So I might actually just toss that to Brad and just to see what has worked for Staples and Best Buy in particular. You have a wide footprint across the U.S. Do you integrate efficiency rebates into your capital planning projects? If so, how much of an impact do those have?
I'll start off, Matt. One of the things that we do, luckily, by having national accounts and working with people like Trane, Lennox, and Carrier, Acuity, they come to us and we get to see the latest product. We're always looking to find out what is the newest LED, which has the control structure. We get to deal with over 800 utilities, and this is where partnering with NG helps us out. Having that rapport with an account rep that handles the Staples account, letting them know that, hey, here's our budget cycle. This is what we're planning. We have this new technology. We gotta get to see the best and the worst utility programs, because I might be going out and buying for 300 stores. So for me to have to do a pre and a post audit, because in the retail sector, there are blackouts. I can't be in there during the holidays. I can't be in the stores during back to school. So I have to put up front to say, I have to do a detailed audit. If I'm going to go ask for money, I can tell you exactly what's in every store, how many fixtures in the account. I'm open for utilities to do one audit, and if I'm off within 1 or 2%, and then we also incentivize our audit teams from our lighting company to say, hey, you're going to be right on. If you're off, then you're not doing a very good audit. So for us to do that heavy legwork, and then I can tell you that my audit team says, Bob, you said a 2-year payback. Why aren't you achieving that goal? So I have measurement and performance-based metrics that I look at every month after I do a job. I can share that with the utilities, show I'm achieving that. One of the utilities, they don't do that. So that's why working with you up front to show us, here's the product, here's the return on investment, and here's what we have on site, and then do 1 or 2 post-op. If I'm off, then hold me more accountable. But we do so much due diligence up front, and sharing that information with the utility opens the door. And then we try to apply for stuff early on and say our fiscal calendar is February 1. How are you doing incentive rebates? How do we apply for that? Because we know it's first come, first served, because I build those rebates into the project. So those are some of the things that I would talk to the utilities about in sharing that information right up front so we don't run into those problems. And that way we can get these incentives and put the lighting or the energy management system or the HVAC that we want to put in right out of the gate.
Yeah, and I guess I'd probably tag on to that. I know a number of utilities use kind of installing partners. So there'll be a list of electrical contractors that are sort of automatically set up in their system. But for a big national retailer like us, I have to have a separate contract with those individual folks. It's challenging at best for me to sometimes kind of go outside of the herd that I have in my space. So I think for a utility company to allow us to use our preferred and contracted vendors to go out and still be able to execute and get that rebate and make it available to us through our channel rather than through the channel that the utility company has kind of negotiated.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Bob and Brad. It's great to hear about how it sounds like there are robust partnerships between your organizations and your utilities. And thank you also for sharing about how your needs might align with some of the existing rebate incentive programs. So far, we've discussed kind of current state of your organizations and also current barriers to kind of meet more longer term commitments. I do also want to shift gears a bit and discuss the future state of each organization's energy and sustainability programs. So, what the future holds, increasing some of these already ambitious targets. And I think we'll kick it off with Brad. So we're now in an era where a lot of stakeholders want organizations to make commitments to climate protection, as well as make these commitments public. So Best Buy has some ambitious corporate goals of reducing emissions by 75% by 2030, so as to align with some science-based targets. So how does that long-term goal drive the future of your energy management program? And then if you also want to give us kind of a what does the next 3 to 5 years look like, that could also add some context.
Sure. So I think as I talked about a little bit, a lot of our sort of recent and past history has been finding projects to go out and do and reducing how much energy an individual box kind of consumes, right? And the secondary benefit to that has been, also reducing our carbon footprint and our carbon consumption. I think kind of with that good partnership that we developed with the executive group and also with our finance team, we're starting now to look at some more really direct investments into green energy, and probably more so starting to bite into that pure carbon reduction, right? So we just inked a pretty significant investment in a really large Texas solar project, and I believe is going to allow us to purchase really exclusively solar power for just about all of our Texas store locations, right? And that was a pretty big move toward achieving some of those sustainability and carbon goals. And just pretty recently, we're looking at the possibility of doing an actual direct solar installation at one of our big distribution sites out in California. That looks like it's a pretty promising project, and you know, I think to Bob's point a little bit ago, some of the payback on some of these now sort of secondary projects is longer, but I think that we've developed a rapport with our finance group, and I think now that our executive team also kind of understands that I think we've done a lot of the hard work at the individual store level, and now we can do some of these sort of longer vision projects. We're starting some discussions with some landlords around some rooftop solar. Best Buy leases a pretty significant majority of our stores, so we don't necessarily own the roof above us. So we're starting to look into that and figure out how to sort of partner with landlords and kind of work within our kind of real estate and leasing structure for that.
Yeah, Brett brought some great points. I think one of the things that when we talk about as we develop that longer term strategy, you know, again, if we don't own a lot of our properties now, we work with the landlords and have them put it on the facilities, and we'll be the off-takers, and we tie it to the lease versus the sites that we own outright. And some of those, I can be honest, they were 10, 15, and 20-year deals. If you have a lease that's for 10 years, you can't be doing a finance deal for 15 or 20. And I think we're leading to more towards a science-based target now as we start to squeeze the envelope. And I think we've all done a very good job of driving energy out of our box right down to, I can tell you that lighting is a certain percent, HVAC. I can really cut up the pie within the store and show you how the energy is being used. And as we squeeze that down, working with finance to say, hey, how do we add some of these things? Because we're actually adding some charging stations. We're adding electric vehicles to our facility. So we're adding some more energy intensity type equipment to the building, as well as driving efficiencies down. So that's why really having a strong energy team and leveraging the partners that you already have, meaning like Acuity and our utility companies, they actually have a seat at the table. And then when we sit with our sustainability team within Staples, we're able to put together robust programs for the next 3 to 5 years to say how we're going to achieve that. Because what they want to do is, Bob, hey, you set a target base of 50%, you're at 38, what are you going to do over the next 2 years? Okay, if I get $5 million in capital, I can get there. If I go out and buy a community deal or do some other type of investment, I can get there faster or quicker, but it comes at a price tag. So that's why having the finance team to be able to lay out the strategy from an energy perspective, we have our ducks in a row. And that's where people from NG, and we use them a lot to do our carbon reporting and sustainability. And I know that early on, you know, come March, it was a painstaking to collect all that data. One of the things, we have monthly calls with them to say, okay, here's our portfolio, here are the things we're adding, here are the things we're doing. So when it comes to getting that numbers out in the midsummer, it's easy. And I can see where I am at any point in time to achieving those goals on our new targets, but as I want to reach forward with the team, where do I want to be? So it's really partnering with the teams around you. Again, I hate to say it, but a lot of energy folks don't have a big team. Leverage those people that have the expertise on team that you're already paying for, you don't realize you can take advantage of. That what works for Staples.
Great, thanks so much, Bob. And then Matt, to speak a little bit more broadly about future trends or market changes, obviously conversations about price uncertainty has come up and been a dominant consideration in a lot of, in both Staples and Best Buy's future energy management plans. So is there any future key trend or market change that all companies, regardless of maturity level, should know about?
Yeah, I think in terms of the energy markets and rates, I think you should be prepared for uncertainty, unfortunately. And, you know, try to, again, control what you can control, whether that be through third-party purchasing, wherever that is possible. budgeting for increased energy and water rates, especially on the water rates side. We're seeing huge increases due to the aging infrastructure in the United States. That the cost is being passed to the consumers essentially. There is maybe a slight silver lining to all of this in that, you know, some projects that you may have looked at in the past that might not have been financially viable might look a little bit more attractive now. But on the flip side, with all of the volatility, it's very difficult to plan for that same amount of you know, cost per kilowatt hour or cost per unit of energy. Secondarily, you know, just in terms of future trends, there's going to the renewables discussion. There's a finite amount of renewables out there, and while that is rapidly expanding, there's also a finite amount of renewable credits. So as all these organizations that have goals to hit start getting down to the next 5-10 years timeline, pricing of renewable energy credits can fluctuate significantly, and you know, you could end up paying a lot more than you originally anticipated. For more of the tactical standpoint, I was just thinking about you know, changes that would affect you know, Best Buy or Staples, and they might already be ahead of it, but a lot of refrigerant phase out for HVAC systems. Old R22 refrigerant systems are becoming more and more expensive to operate, so phasing that out to more efficient systems is going to be extremely important if you haven't already done that already. And then lastly, the connectivity of building management systems. So a lot of cloud-based management is in place, and there's been a lot of strides in the past 5 years alone in that aspect to keep an eye on.
Perfect. Thanks so much for sharing that. In the interest of time, I think it would make sense for us to now pivot to the Q&A session. We've had a bunch of thoughtful questions come in from our attendees today.